in front of the letter C. That's just me.
There was Jason Kinder had an idea that we ought to run he wanted to change the logo, and I'm not against that. I think we ought to run a little competition and see what ideas we get. It's not.
Why don't you bring that up today in front of everybody?
Yeah, we'll bring that. It's a good point.
I like that. It's a good idea.
Towards the end, you can make your comment that you don't like the logo.
No, I didn't say I didn't like it. I said every time I look at it, I see the letter L in front of
L. Right.
the logo.
It's L CPM.
Yeah, it's LCPM.
LCPM.
Lynch's CPM. I like that.
Lynch's CPM is. I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, it's a start.
It's a start.
All right, I'm out of here again. Bye.
All right, a lot of fun names coming on. All right, so if you, we'll get started in a minute. In chat is the notes for the meeting. Inside the notes are a couple of the PowerPoint slides in the strategy document. So you can download those if you didn't get them in the meeting invite. And I'm going to start in like 30 seconds. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hey, welcome to our annual membership meeting. We ran it virtually last year around this time, so we figured it'd be a good chance to run it again this year in the same similar kind of setup, maybe a little bit of a different format, but similar kind of setup. So we've done a little bit more learning of our teams and those kind of things, but we're getting there. So let me, the agenda for today is I'm going to do a little introduction, remind everybody who the board is. We'll talk a little bit about what we've been doing since COVID, where that got us, financially and some other things. And then we'll kind of walk through a whole bunch of items that are kind of in the Word document, kind of initiatives that were going on. Some of that's lined up by the board members. And Daryl, we're recording, right? Yes, we are. Okay. And then the board members will chime in with any additional comments that need to be made as we go along the way, or any questions you have, discussions we want to have with the board members, and then on particular topics that we went through. And then Daryl's going to give us a little demo of Teams and My CPM. If you're not familiar, everybody has access to, or should have access to, the CPM Teams area. There are some teams there that are for members. There's the library that's there also. So we'll chat about that a little bit. And then we'll just kind of have open discussion. Any other discussions we want to have, talk about some things, where we want to go in the future. I want to kind of have this focus going into the future. And then we're going to try 3 breakout rooms. One on where we want to go with PEP. We just finished doing a virtual round of PEP. So where do we want to go from there? Then we'll talk about the championship series, which we're kind of in the middle of, and that's been going, I think, fairly well. So we want to keep going with that. So kind of the monthly, every other monthly, whatever, workshops, championship series, webinars, half day, 2 hours, 3 hours. We've done a variety of different things. So where we're going there. And then finally, talk about our ISO mirror committee that we're on, or that we have, in what we're doing with that and how you can participate with that as we go forward. So this is the board as it stands now. I'm the president. Kathy Evans moved up to be the executive vice president. She was the VP of conferences, which leaves that position vacant. So if anybody wants to come on to the board, that would be great. The board can bring you on, and then you'll run for election when we come around to election time. We did make some changes last year to the board. So we used to have a VP of admin. Now that's the VP of membership, and that's Becky Winston. She got voted in last year. Bob Loops, the education certification. Marty Duchette's workshops, research, and standards. And then market and communications is now Wendy Hilton. We just appointed her to that position. And then last year we added the VP of digital presence, and Daryl Mesa came on. And then Gordon Krantz is our immediate past president. So that's what makes up the official board as it stands right now. And I'll note this throughout, but Brian's going to have been on for 6 years. Marty's going to have been on for 6 years. So when their period ends, according to our bylaws, they cannot come back in those positions again. So those positions are going to be open. Wendy and Bob filled a position that's coming open, so that will come up for election. Wendy we appointed, so that position could come up for election. So those are there's going to be quite a few slots that are going to come up for election in the fall to start in January of 2023. So if you're interested in either the conference position, we'll appoint you for now. And then we'll run elections in the late summer, early fall for start of next year. So let me just give a quick rundown. Brian Evans, our VP of Finance, couldn't join today. He had some meetings to go to. So let me just give you a quick rundown of where we are. We did terminate our management contract with a company called Virtual at the end of the year. We talked to them about restructuring that, cutting our costs down and everything else. We just came to a mutual agreement that we're going to walk away from each other. Virtual is doing all of our banking and a variety of other things. So we changed our banks to Bank of America, actually ended up having lower fees and I think better service. We changed our credit card processing. Again, after negotiations, with the help of Bank of America, we got lower fees and I think better service down that line. We definitely have much more control in what's going on. We have hired a part-time bookkeeper. As Brian says, he's not an accountant, and we do have to do some filings with the IRS, a thing called a 990, which is a public document, which you can actually go find on the web if you wanted to, about what the finances are and everything else. So we have hired a bookkeeper to kind of help us with that, transferring. We were in QuickBooks before. We're in QuickBooks now online. So we can keep all the accounting good and everything else. Technically, we have a virtual address, which is basically a Staples store in Leesburg, Virginia, because we're a Virginia corporation. So we needed to pick something in Virginia. We're not really publishing that address because it'll cost us money if we get a bunch of mail there. But we did need a street address. So, we're paying, I think, $9 a month to have a street address, and that's where we are. You can't go into that Staples store and see our mailbox or anything like that. It's truly kind of a virtual thing. So we used to have a budget around, 400,000 plus every year as we ran the 2 conferences and everything else. We nicked that down to 28,500, really minimize expenses. Most of that's made up of insurance and our Microsoft bill and our Memby, our membership software, and those kind of things kind of narrow things down. So that puts us in a pretty good shape. If you quickly do the math, if we have, if members are paying around $100 and we have 285 members, boom, we can make that budget. We did take an SBA loan, as we talked about last year. We are now starting to pay that off. We made our first payment this month, and the goal is to pay that off in 60 months. We have 10 years to pay it off, but we've set up a schedule to pay it off in 5 years, and we'll see how that goes. We currently have in the bank, our cash is around 74,000. So, if you do the math here real quick, between the $116,000 loan and the $74,000 we have in cash, you can see we've got to have negative balance in overall assets. That's the problem of not running conferences, but planning for them and having the expenses for them. So we did burn through quite a bit of cash over the last couple of years, but I think we're in a really good position to get ourselves back in good shape, both with membership coming up in kind of re-energizing that whole process and getting people to pay their annual membership and those kind of things, and also restructuring and redoing the sponsorship kind of setup. So let me just pause at that point, because I think this is an important topic to make sure members understand. Do we have any questions relative to the financial summary? Or you can put it in chat. Let me go over to chat, see if there's anything in chat. Other board members, help me out if there's anything going on in chat. All right, so if there's no questions there, I think, overall, I will say, I think we're on solid ground. I mean, doesn't necessarily feel great to be in a negative position, but in running this nonprofit, what's important is that we have enough cash that we can do some things, and we do have that. And then the whole banking setup, we completely converted that around. Brian did a great job on that. We got a great deal with Bank of America. We've skimmed through all of our expenses and cut a whole bunch of stuff out that we were doing that really wasn't providing value to us. So I think the board did a good job of that, and we're in good shape as we go forward. All right, so I'm going to stop the charts and go to this Word document. And as I mentioned before, the Word document is in chat. It's the CPM members meeting. And actually in that is the link, buried in there is the charts I just went through. So I just kind of went through the financial stuff. Like I said, I think we're in good shape cash wise. Expenses are under control. I will say also the board, since we kind of started having the COVID issue, no board members get reimbursed for any expenses. So it's purely an all volunteer kind of setup in there. And I think that was a good choice by the board. All right, so let's scroll down here. I'm not necessarily going to read every line in here. And then I'm going to call on particular board members at times to chime in, and if you have questions as I kind of go through this review, ask away. That's the purpose of the meeting. So whoever has their hand up, go ahead and chat.
Sure. Dan Lynch had a question about the interest rate on the loan.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you, Kathy. Yes. It's pretty darn low. Matter of fact, I think it hasn't even started yet, and it's like 1.8% or something. It's tied to some T-bill rate or something like that. It's fairly low. So that's why we want to start paying it off, so we minimize how much interest. It is an SBA disaster loan, so it's like anything else. I know people and businesses got PPP loans, but the thing is we didn't have any employees. So we couldn't get a PPP loan. A PPP loan was on for payroll. And so we couldn't get that, can't get that, disaster loans. We could get a disaster loan, but it's not going to be forgiven. Disaster loans are not going to be forgiven, just to give you that additional info. Thank you, Kathy. Keep watching the chat for me. All right. So COVID, let's talk about that impact, right? COVID, was a big impact relative to conferences. We were definitely an organization that was centered around conferences. We last ran our conference in December, in-person conference in December of 2019. We were all set to run the May 2020 conference. We had a lot of those expenses. We came back around and that got canceled. We tried to schedule some other things. Those got canceled. We did in January of 2021 ran a virtual conference. So we ran down that side. But the bottom line, membership dropped. A lot of people paid their membership when they would go to conferences. We didn't really have any conference income, but we still had a management company that was trying to help us get ready for conferences. So we had those expenses. So we really did consume a lot of our assets, right? In spring of 2020, we had about 80K in assets. And then we migrated to, we're about, as we just said, about 50K in the hole. So we got the disaster loan. That's what gives us a good operating cash, and we're in good shape there. Other things that you may or may not be aware of, we have kind of gone through and decided to not continue with the IPPD certification effort. We decided in the fall of 2021, kind of late summer, fall of 2021, not to run a conference in 2022. And that helped us really cut our costs. It helped us kind of decide to separate from virtual, the management company, because they were really there to help us run the conferences. And if we kept not running conferences and we really couldn't predict when in-person conferences were going to come back, we were spending money and not really having any input coming back from that. So we just kind of terminated that. So a little space on the positive side, we went virtual, right? We brought the Microsoft Exchange in 2020 with Teams. We've gone virtual. We ran the virtual IPMW conference in January 2021. That worked fairly well, but again, not the kind of cash that we're covering total expenses when we were running in-person conferences. We did update the bylaws in June of 2021. We've added the VP of Digital Presence, which is Daryl's position, which kind of handles the website and some of the work in our Memby software, which is our membership software. And that really was very helpful. Daryl's been great, and we've been able to kind of switch things around. And then we also got back to we ran the award ceremony and kind of caught up there. And we added a Professor of the Year award, right? Again, to kind of do that outreach to the academic environment. So that's kind of a summary of the past and where we kind of transitioned to. And then this next part, I'm just going to highlight some things that I like to refer to as the rebaselining, to use some of our own terms of where we've been going. So at the beginning of the year, Gordon became the immediate past president. I became the president. We moved Kathy Evans over to be the executive vice president. We didn't have a conference scheduled, and we needed someone around that had been on the board for a while, so that worked out very well. And then we recently brought in Wendy Hilton to be the VP of Communications and Marketing. So she's going to help out there. On the web side of things, so Daryl's going to give us a little demo at the end of this discussion. But our membership software is called Memby. And so we've completely redone our relationship with Memby. And actually now Memby hosts our website. If you go out to mycpm.org, you'll notice that the website looks different. It runs different. It's up more often. It's a professional website, and it's actually being managed by Memby in the background. So that's really helped out on the functionality of the website. And then Memby is the software that tracks all of your membership. It also allows us to track events and those kind of things. We cleaned up our membership database, and we're going to start adding some functionality to those things. So we've actually added a widget on there that's a CPM library, and we're trying to figure out how to migrate the old CPM library, which is in a DOS Windows collaboration out on a server somewhere. We know where it is. We have control of it, but we're trying to figure out. We actually have some Syracuse University students that aren't charging us anything. They're getting a little experience. We're getting their free services. Are trying to help us to figure out how we can migrate the old library that was like put together 10 years ago or more, and migrate it onto a new common or new basic website page, which would be the CPM library that we have on the website. You can still get to the old CPM library, but we need to migrate ourselves off of that pretty quickly, or one of these days they're going to come back and tell us that they're not going to support that anymore. MyCPM.org also has a lot of members content. That's where you can go in and adjust your profile and everything else. You don't have to call the office anymore. Everything you can do now online through the member software. So if you want to change your email address, pay your invoice, all those kind of things, and we're working on it so we can soon you'll be able to log in using your LinkedIn account, and then we're working. Daryl will show you a little bit about, we're going to be able to track PEP training. If you participate in any events that we're doing and you register for them online through the website, then they will be tracked, and then that shows up in your profile. So it kind of keeps a record for you of what you participated in. So that's nice. So from the standpoint of continuous learning points or PDUs or whatever, that's a record that you have. You can just dial in and take a snapshot of it, and that's a record of where you're going. So at the end, we'll let Daryl chime in, and we'll go through a little demo and talk more about that. So if you have questions about the digital presence side, we'll come back to that in a minute. So next, I'd like to talk about membership. So Becky Winston is doing the membership side. We did kind of run a membership campaign. A lot of you probably remember, you got some emails. What we did with the software was we made almost everybody in the database a member again. That was like 1,300 people. So the system could automatically send everybody an email. That worked fairly well. We're back to 250 paying members. And that just keeps growing, right? People who kept their membership are continuing to pay, and we're getting a couple members each week coming back in that used to be members or are getting brand new members. So as Becky likes to say, we're back in a growth trajectory in our system. And then we also took membership and made retirees and students $15 instead of $50 to encourage that. And then we also created a government rate at $75. That's the 25% off, because we also created a bulk buying for organizations. So a large organization who buys 25 or more memberships will get 25% off a membership. So we figured out in Memby how to put out promo codes. So like some of our sponsors, they were giving them some memberships as part of them sponsoring the organization. So then they get the promo code, they can give it out to their staff. Their staff can come in and join the organization using the promo code, and it doesn't cost any dollars in there. Becky, at this time, do you want to chime in with anything else?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, John. But I want to let folks know that there are many ways for individuals to volunteer. You don't necessarily have to become part of the board, but you can volunteer in specific areas. Most of the board members are looking to set up committees to assist them. For instance, within membership, I'm looking for a general membership group, as well as some people to volunteer in the awards area. Always looking for truly qualified individuals that have given back to the profession to stand for us to look at for awards. And then the final bullet is we're doing some outreach to potential international members. Our first effort's in Brazil, and I'm going to let Gordon talk to that if he wants to. Gordon?
Yeah, I'll scroll down. Gordon, why don't you go ahead and talk about that now? If you're there, I'm going to scroll down. That's on the second page.
Okay.
All right.
So
Here it is.
last year at the membership meeting, we had a Brazilian member reach out and say that they wanted to collaborate more with CPM because he's looking to try to figure out how to get, more of this performance management kinds of stuff going in Brazil, and he'd had some success working with the Brazilian Navy. So we actually had an international series that we ran last year for quite some time that he participated in. And then he asked two things. The first thing is he asked if he could have a Brazilian focused series that was not sponsored but supported by CPM. Specifically, he's going to hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 sessions, starting and it's targeted at a Brazilian audience. It'll be like 5 p.m. Eastern, something like that. It Brazilian industry as well as Brazilian government. So he's been asking for CPM support as far as someone who can, be there to, co-present or whatever. So Mauricio and I will be essentially hosts for all the sessions. So I'll be at all of them. But some of the panels, there's a Brazilian Navy panel. So I was able to solidify a acquisition executive from the Navy that will be a panelist as well. Another session will be on compliance kinds of things, and they've got an organization similar to GAO. So I was able to solidify Jennifer Leota from the GAO to be a panelist as well. There's still a few other areas that we'd like to try to support with a CPM. If risk is your forte, we'd like to add a CPM person as part of that panel. And then there's, some things related to AACE and cost, the cost part of being performance management. So if there's someone with a particular cost expertise, that would be someone. We have a little bit of time to add to that because that's, later in July. And then finally, he's actually got some interest from the Brazilian Navy for taking the PEP series. And so we've worked out a way to try to support that. Still working through a lot of the logistics, but essentially to have some interest in, from another government agency in the CPM PEP, I think is a huge step forward. And it'll be an excellent chance to try our asynchronous training that we're putting together. We've recorded all the sessions over the past year, and yes, the Brazilian series will be held in English. I think that Mauricio will try to have some translation to Portuguese potentially, but that would be something that he would work on his side. But yeah, right now we're they're going to watch our videos that were put on essentially, and they're going to be given an opportunity to take the test and that sort of thing.
So I think this is, go ahead, Becky.
So it's going to do the translation on the various slides so that they have those prior to watching the videos, and that will help.
So I think this is a great example of, an opportunity coming up. I mean, we have a variety of international members. This kind of came up. I think, we'll see what we can do with it. And I really appreciate Gordon jumping on this and helping us put this together. We've tried different, chapters and stuff before. A lot of the chapters have kind of gone into hibernation other than the DC chapter. So hopefully as we come out of this pandemic, we do more virtual stuff. We can kind of get back into this a little bit more. And I think this is a great example of just the kind of, I think, keeping to our mission, the things that we can do to help collaborate both in the United States and internationally. So let me scroll back up to where we were. So I think that's it for, the kind of things we're doing on the membership side. And then in PEP training, Bob did a great job with the deans and all the instructors. We ran a virtual PEP training. We basically last fall looked at, hey, if we're not going to run a conference, let's deconstruct the conference. Let's run PEP training virtually. And then we kind of ran the practice symposiums workshops kind of in what we call this champions series that Marty Duchette came up with. So we didn't run the conference, but we kind of deconstructed it and ran it. So we just finished last week running the 5 3-day PEP series, each of the tracks. That went, I think, really well, considering it was our first round through that. Really helpful that DOE came in and bought 31 seats. Not only did they buy 31 seats to the PEP training, they got membership along with that. Each one of the series had a half a dozen or dozen or so additional people buying into the series. So it was a really successful kind of thing. We moved the testing online. Daryl did a great job of working with Bob through trying to get a learning management system. We actually went through several different ways of doing it and got that worked out. So as Gordon just noted, the sessions are recorded. Students could kind of use them and study. They could go back on Teams, look at the recordings, and then go take the tests. So I think that was a really great progress in working down that line. Did I see Bob? Did I see Bob come on? Bob,
He was on and then he had to leave.
Okay. So yeah, I didn't think he was going to be able to come on. So Bob, I just want to thank Bob, the deans, and all the instructors. I think it went really well. Really appreciate it. And then later on, I'll be in the session. We're going to have a little breakout room discussion at the end here if you want to participate in. And then where do we go next? Right? Where do we go next with PEP training? I think there's been a lot of discussion about updating and moving things. So how are we going to do PEP into the future? Where do we want to go with it? We don't necessarily, I'll talk a little bit about where we're going with conferences, but it's not necessarily set that the conferences would have PEP training in them. So, we need to talk about where we want to go there. All right, so next is the practice symposiums. So Marty Duchette set this up. We started in December. We selected champions. Marty went through the different kind of topics that we usually talked at the EVM World and IPM workshops. And so 9 areas were put together. Gary jump-started us back on the 9th of December, talking about system validations and IBRs. You can see the rest of the list there. Rick Price, Dan Lynch, Gordon ran a session here in May. Andrea Nybert's going to run a session on Agile. I'm going to run a session on standards. We have some work coming together on lessons learned on IPM DAR with Albert Schwartzman and some DAU folks, the DAU South folks, and there's some other topics there. I think this has gone really well. And in the past, we had done webinars off and on, but they really weren't, I would say we weren't always consistent with the webinars and stuff like that. I think this is done well, that we ought to continue down this path. And it's a question of what do people want to see. So the lessons learned on IPM DAR is something that we've got some requests from John Fleming at NASA to help him out, that he wanted to get a little bit more detailed down that line. So, when we get into these discussions, either you can put in chat or send me an email or send Kathy or Marty an email. And, what topics do we want to see? Do people want to hear about? And what topics would you like to support and maybe potentially run? And we'll just keep running these. We'll just keep running them out. And then depending on how we run into conferences and those kind of things, we'll just see, where it all goes. Kathy or Marty, do you want to chime in on any of that?
No, I think you covered it well, John. Thank you.
All right, so then on sponsors, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor group that we have, SNNA Software, ClearPlan, Humphreys and Associates, Encore Analytics, Steel Ray, Barbacana, and Oracle Primavera are all in as sponsors, as well as we have the EVM EVM Practitioners Forum that we've kind of struck a deal for some discounts on that forum and everything else. And we've also in the middle of striking a deal with the University of Maryland's PM Symposium Conference. So next year we'll be running a track there. We're still working through on whether we're going to get discounts and those kind of things. So it's been really great for the sponsors to come back in. We don't have the regular conference in the booths and stuff like that, but we've had the various different sponsors supporting the events that we have. So either the championship series or the PEP training. Oracle Primavera in Steel Ray and Barbacana did a really great job on, supplementing the first training track we had on scheduling with some of their presentations. It's just really helpful. And of course, we're always looking for more sponsors. So you can talk to Wendy Hilton. She's just coming on, so we're going to get her into the game. But we'll be continuing to trying to bring sponsors back into the game here. And as we go back to thinking about an in-person conference, we'll be talking to our sponsors and others who've been our sponsors in the past to come back and talk about what we're going to do down that line. All right. So let's talk about back to in-person conferences. So the VP of conferences is a vacant position. So if you're thinking about it, if you're really interested in seeing in-person conferences come back and everything else, think about volunteering for that position, because I think we are going to go back to in-person conferences in 23, and there's a couple options that we have open. We have talked to Dave Scott in the EVM Practitioners Forum. You can see on our event page, if you register before the 31st of July, on our event page, we'll give you a discount code, so you get 10% off the EVM Practitioners Conference, which is in late October. And we CPM are going to make some presentations at that conference. We're still talking about that with Dave Scott, and we'll figure that out. So I think that's a really good opportunity. He runs that conference in Washington. A lot of the feds, I know he has Dave Cadman and a couple other, Mel Frank's going to be talking about their tool that they developed for assessing earned value and those kind of things. So I think that will be a good discussion. We're also looking at and have had some preliminary discussions with NDIA's IPMD committee. CPM is a member of NDIA IPMD. We pay our membership. Matter of fact, we've paid our membership for 3 years. So if you are a member of CPM, just like if you are an employee of Lockheed or an employee of Boeing, you can be a member to NDIA through your CPM membership in there. And so you can log on to NDIA and go to member, and it will go down, and you just say, hey, I'm connected with the College of Performance Management, and boom, you can sign up for the emails and everything else, and it does not cost you anything because you are a member of CPM. So what we're looking at, the potential, and this is just potential, we've been talking with some of the vendors, some of our sponsors. Also, I just got an email back yesterday from John Fleming at NASA, very interested in this, that we would go potentially to San Diego in 2023 maybe Huntsville in 2024 and kind of help run a collaborated event that would be a week long that would include the NDIA, the quarterly NDIA meeting, as well as the IPM workshop. Back to having, vendors there, having booths there, and then we got to figure out what else we're going to do there. I'll call it more of a collaboration event, and let's think out of the box of where we want to go. So that is something that we're starting to talk about, think about. If you're interested in that, want to chat about it, send me a note, send Wendy a note, or Kathy Evans, and we'll chat more about it. And then, as I mentioned, at the University of Maryland, we'll be running a performance management track in the PM Symposium in late spring of 2023 also. So we'll need to think about what we want to put in that track and how we want to pick people and those kind of things and talk about it. I think, maybe some of the better things we did in the webinar series and the championship series can then be repeated in that conference and improved upon. All right, let me pause at that point. Any questions or thoughts? All right, so next is,
Hey, John.
Go ahead.
Hey, it's Dave Scott.
Hey, Dave.
Hello there. Yeah, no, just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. I really appreciate working with you on the EVMP this year, and I'm excited that CPM is going to participate in that. We have that, just to give everybody the dates. It's October 26th and 27th at the UVA Darden Center, which is in Arlington. So it's a nice facility. We did it there last year. So, it's, as the name said, really focused more on the practitioners. As John mentioned, we've got, various government speakers that are presenting. Ivan Bember is going to present as well. And then we have 3 tracks on the 27th. One is Project Controls Analyst track. Another one is on Agile and Agile and EVM. And then the third one is basically implementing, government requirements for contracts. So we've got 3 different tracks. If anybody's interested in presenting on any of those topics or in any of those tracks, would love to hear from you. So that's all I really wanted to share, John.
All right, thanks a lot. And do we have another hand up?
You do. Christine Hoffman.
Okay,
Hey,
yeah.
I wanted to ask Dave real quick, are those courses also going to be virtually as well for some of us that can't make it in person yet?
We are. Yeah. We're going to do a hybrid again this year. We did it last year. So, and we think we got the technology worked out, so it worked pretty well. So,
okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, so next on the agenda is talk a little bit about our strategy. There's a Word document there. If you click on that Word document, you're going to get this coming up. I'm not going to go through this in great detail. I just want to highlight a couple things. Our mission in the bylaws is to share, promote, advance the best planning, control, and performance management for projects of all sizes and complexity. So, we're not, I think that's a pretty broad statement from a mission point of view. And one of the goals that I have out of this whole thing is we really don't have a definition for performance management. It is not necessarily defined in the bylaws. If you go out there and Google, performance management is kind of like on the HR side of things. But I think one of the things we ought to do this year is try to come up with a definitive definition we can hold out. If you go over to PMI, the Project Management Institute, they do not have a definition in their lexicon for performance management. So put that in the back of your head. We'll send some things out and talk about it to think through that. And then our objectives, which again comes from the bylaws, is to improve the professional status, provide a focal point for dissemination, promote global collaboration, what Gordon was just talking about, focal point for dissemination. We got the library. We run these conferences, those kind of thing, and then encourage government and industry support for research and education programs. So one of the things you'll see from us this year is also is we did the award ceremony for education. Is hopefully we'll get a little bit more involved in what research is going on and what education programs are going on, in there. So I think we can sit back and look at our bylaws in, what are we doing? How do we want to evolve? Do we want to go back and look at those bylaws, look at these objectives, as we kind of, I like to call it, make a single point adjustment, renew where we're going. Let's start planning out into the future. If we want to call it rolling waves, that's fine. Where do we want to go? We shouldn't be necessarily driving that all just from the board. We're interested in members getting more involved. I mean, one of the things we're hoping is that, as Becky noted, we're going to try to build some committees and try to get more involvement. We've always had good involvement in the PEP training, but then we've kind of been centered around the conferences. So I think we're going to have a little less emphasis on the conferences and more emphasis on doing some virtual events and maybe participating in other organizations, whether that be NCMA, in COSI, the engineering folks, Dave Scott's conference, whatever it may be, participating with those things. So there's some other words down here that you can read through and think about where we want to go. There's a little summary of our mission here. If you put all those missions and goals and objectives together, you could say that the College of Performance Management mission is to share, promote, advance performance management through objectives which improve professional status for all persons engaged in the practice and techniques across projects of all sizes and complexity. We measure ourselves by how well we disseminate information and promote global collaboration while encouraging research educational efforts across government, industry, and academia. I think that's a pretty good summary, but again, open for comments and thoughts. If you want to read the bylaws and our ethics, there's the link. They're on our website. So you can go onto the website and see what those are. So as we progress forward, I want you to think about what's in our bylaws, what our mission is, and where are we going. I think that's, we've in some ways can say we've had a narrow view. In other ways, if you look back over the history of the organization, we've done a lot of variety of different things. And I think we should continue to do those variety of different things. With our narrowing of our costs, we don't have to be so focused on the conference and making money on the conference. We can be more focused on meeting our mission goals in that way, whether that's through conferences or other means. Daryl, do you have your hand up?
Yes, John, I was going to just point out from Douglas Bauer, a really interesting topic that you and I actually talked about in the past, having CPM in the wiki. I was wondering if you can maybe explain or shed some light on that as we are exploring in that area for CPM.
You mean from Douglas?
Yes.
Yes. Hi. I've just noticed in the strategy document, the goal part 2, maybe as a wiki. Now, a wiki could be created that's freestanding, but to my mind, it'd be even better, since the whole idea is dissemination, is to simply use the totally free service made available by Wikipedia. And starting point would be to have a page just about the College of Performance Management. So if you go to Wikipedia, you'll see that there's other associations in the area of project management. I won't name their names, but there's other institutes related to project management. And if you put their name in, you'll get a little page about them. So that could be a starting point. And then beyond that, we could add more pages about performance management and earned value and all the wonderful things it does.
I think that's a fabulous idea, Douglas. Yeah, one of the ideas we have is to try to build a compendium for performance management. I know as a professor teaching at the University of Maryland and up at American University, I get students that have gone to the web and looked things up, and it's you almost have to uneducate them to point them in the right direction. And so that was kind of the thought process along that line, is to build something that doesn't create anything new, but lets people know there is the PASIG out there. There is the NASA risk guide out there. There is the GAO cost guide, right? Here are good sources of information, not necessarily selecting one is better than the other, but just letting people know where sources of information are and kind of help to characterize them. And yeah, whether we do that on Wikipedia or whether we do that on our own website, however we do that, I think that's a discussion we can have.
Yeah, so I hereby volunteer to do whatever may be helpful in that regard. It's not necessarily a choice between using Wikipedia and using creating your own wiki. You can do both. It's just that the Wikipedia is publicly facing. A lot of people go there, students in particular, to find stuff, whereas they may not be able to find the college's compendium immediately.
Right.
You know, as I said, Wikipedia doesn't cost anything to use, so and it provides a glimmer of respectability. So I think it's a win-win. So as I said, I've got a summer off, so I'd be happy to put up a page on the college, and it could be edited at any time.
All right, that's great. I think, yeah, go ahead and work with Daryl, because this is right up the digital presence kind of venue, Daryl. So I think that would be a great idea. We get started down some of those lines.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
The only catch is I'll use Canadian spellings.
That's well, we're supposed to be international, so that would be fine. I mean, right?
There you go. There you go.
We go on the ISO. Becky will talk about the ISO committee and everything else, and you know they spell program totally differently. So
I know, aren't they crazy? Yeah.
It's part of. I think it's part of us embracing. I mean, we shouldn't. I had a meeting last month with the NDAA IPMD board, and we want to improve. We actually, Dale Gilliam on the board is has a task to kind of help us build a better relationship, with Dan Lynch, who's our official representative, back and forth. And I think we're going to build an MOA in strengthen that relationship, but it also doesn't mean that we shouldn't be outreaching to other places. There's a lot of places that are doing earned value beyond the federal government. And we ought to be looking to help those folks too. So, hey, thanks for that. So take a look at this strategy document. It's posted right in here, the link. You can link on that. And if you have questions on that particularly, you can send them to me as the president, or really anybody on the board. And let's talk about that. I'd like to, coming kind of into the fall, is to settle on some things that we can post on our website. Some of the information that's in this document kind of drove some of the language we used on our website, but all that's open for discussion. So, come chime in and participate. And Doug, I'm glad you chimed in and then also volunteered. So that's exactly what we want. We want membership participation. I think we had gotten to a point where, we had a management company, we were running the conferences and everything else, and we don't have a management company anymore. It's just us, all of us volunteers. That's what CPM's made up of. We have 250 solid members now. And we ought to grow that. We have some 12,000 on the EVM LinkedIn group, but we ought to get better at that. All right, so let's just some additional topics board wise, and as we go through this, board members can chime in as we go through. But I just kind of want to note a couple other things. So Brian Emmons is the VP of Finance. I was going to go through this thing and put everybody's email address on it, but I didn't get to that point. But you can see all the board members on the website and get to their LinkedIn accounts and their email addresses. So, you can go to my CPM and do that. But we do need an audit committee to review 2021. We don't want to go out and hire an auditor. Why do that? That costs us $3,000 or $4,000. There's no reason to do that. So we need to put an audit committee together for 2021 and check that block. And then the other thing I want to note is Brian's been the VP of Finance he will be finishing up his 6 years, 2 3-year terms. According to our bylaws, he cannot be the VP of Finance in the next round. So in the fall of 22, when we have elections, we need to elect a new VP of Finance. So that is coming open. Becky, you want to talk about your two, I guess you kind of already talked about your two committees. You want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, in lieu of actually having solid committees, I would welcome any type of suggestion as to individuals who should receive an award. The awards are listed on the CPM website, my CPM. So please feel free to email me any type of suggestions that you have. I'm open to that. I'll review them, and the board will review them after I have made some suggestions and organized it into a presentation. So please feel free to email me.
Yeah, and then we'll be running an election this fall. We didn't run an election. Well, we did run an election last year. We didn't run an election in 20 because no board members kind of came up. But we have quite a few board members kind of coming up that we need to elect, either again or somebody new according to the bylaws. So we will be running an election in the fall. So that will all be, electronic like it was done before. Wendy Hilton's our VP of Marketing and Communications. That position, she got appointed in that position. They'll come up for election also in the fall of 22. But, anywhere you want to help us, Wendy then will be doing our, LinkedIn postings, getting with sponsors, those kind of things. If you want to help her with any of that, you can get a hold of her. We'd like to get more of a LinkedIn presence going and those kind of things. So if you have any ideas down that line, getting the word out about CPM, like I said before, putting more of an emphasis on membership. Digital presence. So here's Daryl. We're so digital with Daryl. Daryl's not even a real person. He's an avatar. So you want to chime in on a couple of things, Daryl?
Yes, and John, thank you again for all that you do and for all the for everybody out there as well. So as far as my position in today's session, I was going to go over the website, Microsoft Teams, and some of the areas within the website. So if you have any questions, just please feel free to reach out to me at any time. And that's it, John.
Okay, yeah, and we'll do a little demo towards the end here. We do need a librarian. I've talked to 1 or 2 people about coming on to help us with the library. We got Syracuse kind of helping us from a technical point of view, but it would be great to actually have a librarian of some sorts to come in and help us with all the data we have. I think that's a really good benefit from CPM. I mean, we got all the conference presentations, everything else going back for years. We're getting more videos now and those kind of things. So it really kind of needs to be curated. And then Daryl can always use help on the website and in Teams as we run more meetings. It's always good to have someone in the background helping with the teams meetings and those kind of things. So we could use help down that line. We are fully, we're on a Microsoft Exchange. We have an Azure account, blah, blah, blah. You know, we're fully locked into all that stuff. So if you want to help, get a hold of Daryl and we work it down that line. All right, and education and certifications, that position also needs to come up for election. And then the other thing is updating PEP training. So we're actually going to have a breakout session on that. We're going to have a breakout session on the mirror committee, and we'll have a breakout session on the PEP training. I don't think Bob's going to be able to be with us, so I'll take that one. Becky's going to do the mirror committee, and Kathy, and if Marty stays on, they'll be doing the championship series. Any questions off the bat about PEP? Really want some input from folks on where we can go with that and where people want us to go with it and what people want to support. Okay, so then the VP of workshops, research, and standards is Marty Duchette. Kathy, you want to chime in a little bit here? Marty's kind of taken a little bit of leave from the board for a couple months, but I see he's on. So Marty or Kathy, do you guys want to chime in at all on any of these topics?
So really what we're looking for is things that are of interest to you that will help further your careers or make your jobs easier. So as John said, we're always looking for ideas and welcome your input.
Yeah, and then the mirror committee's there, and Becky's kind of been taking the lead for us on that. That's the ISO mirror committee. We have a separate group sanctioned in for that, and then we've started this awards on professors, and I think some of the work that DOE did with Arizona State University on earned value was very interesting and got us thinking about that we ought to really tie into more what's going on in the research side of the world, either on scheduling, performance management, anywhere of those related areas.
John, just to note, our winner of the Professor of the Year award just joined the meeting.
Remind us again. Who was that this year?
It was me. Hello.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
This is Dr. Kamushi.
Yes,
Kamushi. Thank you so much for the award.
No, that's great. Hey, I'm glad you're joining us because, I think it's, if we're going to influence where things are going, I know myself teaching at the University of Maryland, there's not a lot of professors that are out there giving people a good introduction to performance management, whether that be earned value or any other measurement system. So I think it's an important part of it.
Yeah, my apologies for being late. I did not receive the invitation before, so I received it just 2 o'clock or so, and I had to go somewhere.
Oh no, that's right.
Fine.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're still. I think we've made great advances on our membership software in our teams and stuff like that, but we clearly are not perfect with all that at all. So we definitely can use more support in that area. And again, all volunteers. So, if anybody wants to support in that area, that'd be great. And then VP of conferences is the last VP. And again, we're looking at doing something in the spring of 2023. Hopefully, we haven't. We've kind of proposed the idea of tying up with the NDIA IPMD committee meeting, tying up with maybe with the FCOG. NASA gets their people together every year. Other kind of events, like we have a collaboration week for performance management. And so that's the idea. We're open for what people are interested in doing and what they're interested in seeing at such an event. whether those be workshops, whether that be training, whether that be, panel structure, whatever it is. The door is open for us doing things. Should it be virtual or just in person or both, hybrid, where do we go with the thing in that? All right, Gordon already got the opportunity to talk about the Brazilian thing, which we're very excited about, and hopefully that goes well. So this kind of brings us to any kind of open discussion people want to have. A couple things on there. We've talked a little bit about the compendium document and wiki and stuff like that. We didn't say anything about measurement news. I think that's one of the things that kind of fell off the table over the last couple years. I know Nick, I think Nick is on. Nick was our last editor of that, and we kind of, I would definitely say we dropped the ball on. Nick didn't drop the ball. We at the board dropped the ball on measurement news with all the other stuff that was going on. So it kind of goes back to what we want to do with these things and what do people want there. So I'll leave that. And then chapters. I mean, Barb's done a great job with the Washington, D.C. chapter, but the Huntsville chapter or the Tennessee Valley and the San Diego chapters have kind of gone into hibernation a little bit. So those are areas that, we're open for ideas as to where people want to go. So I'm going to stop talking and see if anybody wants to discuss anything. I'm going to look at chat, what's been going on in chat. Kathy, you posted the address.
Someone requested it.
No, that means I'm gonna have to go over and pick up some mail. Don't send us any snail mail. I'm joking. I mean, but anything else out there? You guys been reading the chat? Anything that we need to bring up, or we've been answering everything?
We've been answering all of it, John, as we went along.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for watching our annual membership meeting. We would like to take a few minutes of your time and provide you a demonstration of our new and updated website. Now, let's get started with our live demonstrations. On your browser, type in mycpm.org to get to our website. Once your browser loads our website, you will see our new website as shown in this video. Let's take a few seconds to scroll from top to bottom of the website. Next, let's scroll back up to the top of the site and go over our menu items. Our first menu item is the About Us category. If you hover over About Us, a drop-down box will appear, giving you 5 options to select at your choosing. The first selection is where you will find our mission page. The second selection is where you will find our Code of Ethics page. The third selection is where you will find our Recognition and Awards page. The fourth selection is where you will find the News page. And the fifth selection gives you information on how to contact CPM. Our second menu item is the Boards category. If you click on the Board menu, you will meet our Board of Directors. Each board member has their CPM email and LinkedIn profile listed at the bottom of their section if you need to contact any of our board members. Within the Board menu, you will also find our governing document for you to read at your own leisure. Our third menu item is our Events page. This is where you can register for any of CPM's events. Our fourth menu item is our Members content. This is where you will find your membership account to log in. You can also visit our YouTube channel, along with our new CPM document library. Before we leave this category, let's go over a few updates within your View Profile and Edit Profile page. Within your View Profile and Edit Profile, there have been some updates which we also discussed in our annual CPM members meeting. If you scroll towards the bottom of the page, you will come across a category called Participation History. This is located below the Financial History and above the Listings category. The next update is called the Professional Education Program, also known as PEP. This is where you will find information on each PEP series examination. A simple passed or a blank will be displayed on each PEP series. A blank signifies that you have enrolled in any of the series, but you have not passed or taken the examination. Our next update is called the Local Chapters category. This is where you will find the local CPM chapter you are a member of, or if you are interested in becoming a chapter member. The last update is the volunteer opportunities you are a part of. You can select or unselect the volunteer opportunities that are listed. Keep in mind, this section is always subject to change as we are always looking for volunteers. Lastly, if you make any changes within the entire page, please make sure you click Save to ensure changes have been made. Our fifth menu item is the Chapters category. This is where you will find CPM's local chapter page. Our last menu item is the Membership category. This is where you will find the membership forms to submit to the membership team to become a CPM member. You can also find the benefits and the value of becoming a CPM member.